In the rarefied world of hot horology, Patek Philippe glides in with the effortlessness of a swan drifting through Lake Geneva, never showing how hard its little legs are kicking below the surface. While other brands might shout their feats from the mountaintops, Patek Philippe has always seemed content to let its watches do the talking, whispering sweet nothings of mechanical perfections directly into our ear. This is a brand so revered that collectors consider themselves mere custodians, protecting these treasures for future generations. As the slogan once said, "You never own a Patek Philippe, you're merely holding on for the next generation." Sorry kids, you don't get a house, but here's a watch that costs about the same. From royal wrists to modern marvels, Patek Philippe's history is a grand tapestry woven with threads of innovation, elegance, and let's face it, a certain Swiss smugness that's entirely earned. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? Our tale begins in 1839 when Antoine Norbert de Patek, that's probably how it sounds even though he's a Polish immigrant, with a name so aristocratic it could waltz on its own, team up with François Czapek in Geneva. Picture two watchmakers huddled in a tiny workshop, striving to make time tick just a bit more elegantly. Their partnership eventually fizzled like yesterday's champagne, but Patek was undeterred. He quickly crossed paths with Adrien Philippe, the watchmaking equivalent of a secret weapon, who invented the keyless winding system, a breakthrough that lets you set your watch without fumbling for a tiny little key like a cartoon jail warden. In 1851, Patek and Philippe officially joined forces. Cue the triumphant music and confetti, or at least well-cut gears. Patek Philippe and Company was born, and the horological world had better take notes on a finely enameled dial, naturally. But in the mid-19th century, Patek Philippe had leveled up faster than a gamer on a caffeine bender. In 1851, he showed off at the Great Exhibition in London, where Queen Victoria, the original influencer of her time, picked up a Patek Philippe watch. Yes, when you've got Victorian royalty casually sporting a timepiece, you can safely say you've hit the big leagues. Soon, Patek Philippe became the darling of elites who prefer their watches complicated enough to require a PhD in mechanical engineering. Minute repeaters, perpetual calendars, split-second chronographs. These weren't just party tricks, they were Mozart's symphony in miniature mechanical form. While other brands tried to do sporting events and dazzle with deep dives, Patek Philippe was busy mastering the high-wire act of horological complexity, and while barely cracking a smile. Très chic. The 1930s brought change, uncertainty, and ironically, even more refinement. The Stern family took over the company in 1932, making sure Patek Philippe stayed as independent as your stubborn grandfather who refuses to stop driving. And to use a smartphone as well. The same year, we saw the birth of the Calatrava, a watch so elegantly simple it would make a minimalist blush. No need for half a dozen hands. During the Charleston, the Calatrava's understated dial said, "Relax, I've got this," while quietly being the best-dressed watch in the room. In a world flirting with modernity and suffering economic upheavals, Patek Philippe simply shrugged, rolled up its sleeves, and made watches that would outlast not just their owners, but possibly civilization itself. Bootleg? Maybe. But have you seen how some of these pieces are still ticking decades later? It's borderline supernatural. If you ever doubt Patek Philippe's capacity to outcomplicate the competition, consider the Henry Graves Super Complication, delivered in 1933. Commissioned by a wealthy American banker who decided that over the top was just another way of saying Friday, this pocket watch packed in 24 complications. Sunrise, sunset, a celestial map over Central Park. If it could be measured, it was measured. The result? The world's most complicated watch at the time, making your smartphone features looking as exciting as stale toast or watching paint dry perhaps. When it reappeared at auction decades later, it fetched a price that would make your accountant faint. But it's not just the money, it's the statement. Patek Philippe isn't just playing the watchmaking game, it's rewriting the rulebook and then engraving it on a watch dial. As the world entered the late 20th century, others might have scrambled to reinvent themselves. Patek Philippe just sipped its espresso and rolled out its new hits. The Golden Lips challenged conventional shapes, while the brand's perpetual calendars and chronographs kept watch nerds drooling into their loop cases. Then, in 1976, Patek Philippe threw a stainless steel cat among the golden pigeons, the Nautilus. Designed by Gerald Dente, he had a porthole-inspired shape that said, "Yacht Club, anyone?" Suddenly, Patek Philippe went casual chic, still the aristocrat in the room, but now in a tailored blazer rather than a stiff evening attire. It was like seeing a classical violinist nail a jazz solo, and oh, did people love it. But not immediately, but eventually. As sports watches took over the world like a fast food chain in the 70s and 80s, Patek Philippe calmly replied, "That's nice," and continued perfecting mechanical complexity. Under the careful stewardship of the Stern family, this brand navigated changing trends with the grace of a ballet dancer avoiding Lego bricks on the stage. By the late 90s, new lines like the Aquanaut brought younger audiences into the fold. There was a subtle nudge that Patek Philippe traditional wasn't trapped in amber. Grand complications rolled off the bench like confetti at a New York's bash. Tourbillons, minute repeaters, world timers, pieces that made collectors swoon and their bank accounts tremble. Today, Patek Philippe remains family-owned and fiercely independent, like the cool kid at his school who doesn't join any clubs but still gets invited to every party. The brand's famous slogan, "You never actually own a Patek Philippe, you merely look after it for the next generation," might sound like marketing poetry. Well, it is, but it's also a neat reminder that these watches are less about showing off today and more about winking at eternity. When a sports watch in steel as magical as a unicorn sighting, a timeless dress watch that looks just as good with the tux as it does with the t-shirt if you're there, Patek Philippe has recovered, while gently reminding everyone that style, grace, and craftsmanship still matter, no matter how many smartwatches beep their way into our lives. From Antoine Patek's determined vision to Adrien Philippe's brilliant mechanics, from Queen Victoria's patronage to your future grandchild's wrist, Patek Philippe proves that true artistry doesn't just endure, it transcends. This brand has danced through centuries, economic storms, and shifting fashions, always emerging with a sort of quiet confidence that leaves everyone else feeling slightly underdressed. In a world obsessed with the newest and the now, Patek Philippe watches remind us that sometimes the greatest luxury is standing still, letting time pass gracefully with a masterpiece on your wrist. Now, that's a legacy worth passing on.